very rare that I encounter a life-changing piece of fiction. I know it sounds really silly to preface my thoughts like this, especially when Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is a game where you can fight grown men in diapers, get exposed by VTubers, and become the very best like no one ever was. As someone who gets really emotional about the media I consume, my favorite kind of fiction leaves a mark on me in one way, shape, or form. My top favorite, untouchable, goated games reflect that too. The Like a Dragon or Yakuza series has had a huge impact on me, and it's entirely responsible for not just some of the best memories I've had with video games in the last 7 years, but also this channel's inception and branding. It all started here. So every time a new entry in the series is announced, I go absolutely bananas. Especially when it stars Latino legend Ichiban Kasuga, the greatest of goats. No, I am not projecting onto him. I have claimed this man, and he is Dominican to me. Infinite Wealth is a colossal JRPG that celebrates the Like a Dragon series, and it has that humor and heart it got famous for. At the same time, Infinite Wealth is not only a perfect evolution of RGG Studios' game design, it pushes the envelope for what a game in this series can be. As this game is framed as a vacation, I set out to enjoy my trip to Hawaii as much as possible. It just so happens that when I travel, I like to get the most out of my trips and get a little carried away when it comes to planning everything I want to do. So, with the trophy list as my itinerary for this game, I set out to do nearly everything that Infinite Wealth had to offer. I also did some documenting with the PS5's capture feature, all from my first playthrough. You can think of these clips as vacation videos. With my 100+ hour vacation now wrapped, I just want to gush about this game and talk about how much I loved it. I'm not going to be spoiling crucial plot moments, but I will be talking about the game's first few chapters and some set pieces. There's going to be some cutscene footage from some story trailers, but I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. There's going to be timestamps for all of that in the video, the description as well, so if you want to float around and skip around, feel free to do that. This video is meant to be a deep dive into the game for those on the fence, but are still unconvinced as to whether or not they should play this game. I'm also going to be showing off a lot of side content in this video, and like I said, everything will be timestamped. Also, hi, my name's Joey and this is the Dragon Hustle channel. I like to write very long pieces on my favorite media and things that bring me joy in life. If this video is very much up your alley, feel free to interact with it and let me know how you felt about it at the end. Without further ado, let's enjoy our trip. Let's get this out of the way right off the bat. A common question that's asked with not just this game, but pretty much every game in this series is, can I start with this one, or can I jump in from here? The answer is almost always, yeah, with an asterisk. Every game in the Like a Dragon series is mostly standalone and have their own self-contained stories, but the entire narrative spans several decades. The characters in the series age, go through dramatic life events, and even return in future entries. You can still enjoy Infinite Wealth without any prior series knowledge, and you shouldn't let the sheer volume of numbered entries stop you from diving in here. It's kind of tough for me to recommend that someone plays 8 games, not including spin-offs, before they play this one. I'm not your dad, so you can do whatever you want. Infinite Wealth is still a blast from start to finish without playing the rest of the series. If you want to do as little homework as possible, I recommend playing Yakuza Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, then Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth in that order. Gaiden specifically shed some light on what the previous series protagonist Kazuma Kiryu was doing in between Like a Dragon and also Infinite Wealth. Gaiden also has an Infinite Wealth demo with exclusive story events not in the full release. It's definitely worth checking out, but as someone who is not very normal about the Like a Dragon series, my personal recommendation, which is of a crazy person, is to play them all before you get to this one. I know what I said a couple seconds earlier. I'm actually your dad now. I know it's a big list of games, but they're all packed to the gills with content and are super worth every minute you invest into them. The series also frequently goes on sale, and you can get some insane deals for all of the games for the price of like one new retail game, which is some insane bang for your buck. I'm trying to hypnotize you into experiencing peak fiction. Ooh, please tell me it's working. I don't think you're gonna regret going through every game and savoring it and smelling the roses. Thank me later if you do end up enjoying it. And if you do really end up enjoying it, try the spin-off games like Judgment as well. Yakuza Kiwami was my first experience with the series, and once I finished it, I was locked in. I fell in love with the characters, the world, and the soundtrack. Everything just resonated with me in a way I couldn't put into words until now. I then played Yakuza 0 afterward, and it made me a super fan for life. I think because it's such a coming-of-age story about people struggling to break free from the things that hold them back kind of came to me at the perfect time in my life, and it really resonated with me further, and it was over for me the moment I finished that game. I got the impression that every time you finish a Yakuza game, you can kind of appreciate what it did to further elevate the series and kind of see those decisions carry over in each game. So whatever flaws they might have had, I just fell so deeply in love with this series. At the time that Kiwami came out, some people might remember it was only Kiwami 0 and 6 available on PS4, so the remastered collection hadn't come out yet. I was still waiting for the remasters of 2, so I was just kind of rocking in fetal position waiting for more Yakuza games. I still have the original hardware for a lot of these games, so I actually went back and I bought 3, 4, and Dead Souls on PS3, and then I went ahead and I played those, and then once I got the remastered, I played 5, so I took my journey very slowly, but it did end up becoming this like massive undertaking that I ended up enjoying and loving so deeply. I feverishly awaited like every remake, remaster, and I bought them all, and that finally led me all the way here to Infinite Wealth, this joy and passion for this series that resonated with me so much. And I think having all of that context and prior knowledge went an extremely long way to appreciating this game, especially with its narrative and its side content. Because this is the 8th game in the series, there are a lot of emotional beats and cameos that hinge on your love for it. Yes, even this one. There's an entire side story dedicated to reliving your memories with the series and collecting your tears in a jar to look at later. I think the Like a Dragon series is extremely good at connecting with the player, and you'll find something or someone to love or relate to with any one of these games. We need to study the effect that Goro Majima has on the human brain. Infinite Wealth is no different when it comes to grabbing you like that, and to look at how it hooked me right off the bat, I would first like to take a look at the game's first chapter. Because much like Ichiban Kasuga, There's something kind of beautiful about the mundanity that Infinite Wealth's opening chapter depicts. Despite how slow it might initially feel at first, in retrospect, I appreciate the way it humbly depicts its cast returning to their daily motions and settling back into their adult lives. This is also the case for our protagonist, Ichiban Kasuga. This guy is entirely responsible for rewiring my brain chemistry, so this is my moment to gush about him. Ichiban was born with nothing and still made the best of what he had. He's the kind of guy who's hard to hate because of his endless optimism, fierce loyalty, and heart of gold. In Ichi's last adventure, his devotion was met with a knife in the back. He took the fall for his Oath Brother's crime, spent years in prison, then found out his whole world changed once he got out. Worst of all, he was left to die by the person he trusted the most. In Ichiban's heroic quest to uncover the truth behind a massive national conspiracy, he earned the respect of friend and foe alike with his bravery, charisma, and devilishly good Latino looks. With his allies by his side, Ichiban rose from nothing and became like a dragon. He's him! That's my GOAT! A few years later, though, things have settled down. Infinite Wealth opens with our legendary hero now working a 9-to-5 desk job. Imagine if, after everything that happened in Final Fantasy VII, Cloud Strife went to work retail. After the events of the last game, Ichiban is now working to rehabilitate former Yakuza and bring them back into normal society. He also earned the title of the Hero of Yokohama, as well as the respect of its crime syndicates. He's in an objectively better place than he was at the start of the last game, but I think I was expecting more of a hero's welcome, given everything that happened. Some people in Ichiban's party had their lives irreversibly changed after the end of that journey. Despite that, it is kind of charming to see all your old friends going through the motions of adulthood. It's exhausting to go through that daily grind to earn a living, but Ichiban still maintains his love for life and lust for adventure. As someone who relates a lot to him, I continue to connect with him here. While I'm nowhere near as old as he is, I'm in the stage of adulthood. I'm toiling away, not quite working a career I want to just yet, but doing what I can with the hand I was dealt. It's exhausting and I don't have a choice otherwise, but I still try to make time for the things that make me happy. I don't come from money and I've at least built myself up to a level I'm happy with. Ichiban's disposition on life, kindness, and devotion towards helping people is infectious, and it inspires me to be a bit like a dragon myself. I want to be more like him, and I think this is a sentiment shared by a lot of people. At the ripe age of 46, Ichiban is also trying his hand at relationships. Ichiban gave up his most formative years when he went behind bars, and he missed out on a lot of experience he could have had relationship-wise. Dating as an adult is really hard, and it kind of sucks. Navigating those relationships without prior experience is also tough as hell. I can at least relate to seeing a teamwork tutorial in my first date with my partner. I too have fumbled the bag in catastrophic ways, and watching Ichiban do that made me cringe so hard that I wanted to shrivel up and die. While it's hard to make time to meet with my friends still because everyone's so busy nowadays, it's great to spend intimate moments with my loved ones. There's something that Nanba says that kind of clicked with me in a way that I didn't realize when the gang meets up again for drinks.
Man, what gives? This is our first time grabbing beers in 6 months.
This right here is the adulthood staple. Sometimes I just forget to keep in touch with people and months go by before I realize it. Despite that though, I'm still grateful to be close to my friends. And while I'm on that topic, it's pretty refreshing to get a JRPG party of much older adults when the norm is the opposite, usually teenagers or younger adults. I played the Persona series in my teenage years and those games resonated with me because that was my life. Going to school, forging friendships, improving myself, and making amazing memories were all things I lived through. The messages I got from games like Persona 3 are still ones I keep close to my heart and are responsible for changing the way I looked at life as a whole. While I still adore that series with all my heart, my relationship with it has changed. I can't really connect with the Persona series in the way I used to because, well, I grew up. That's not a bad thing, it just means I can now connect with media that represents my current life. Ichiban scaring the maidens is just like me for real. Jokes aside, what I'm getting at with all this is that in just the first few opening hours of Infinite Wealth, I felt seen and represented. And you can see shades of yourself in one or even all of these characters' lives. You might be living through something like this now or have gone through it yourself. And this is the kind of beauty of that mundanity and how the Like a Dragon series can resonate with you. I'd like to dive a bit deeper now and pick apart a few more chapters and kind of just talk about the game's narrative. A year and some change after the events of the first chapter, our party finds themselves in hot water, having been freshly fired from their jobs. I cannot believe a VTuber almost put these guys on the street. Now hearing that the local crime family is making suspicious moves, Ichiban, Nanba, and Adachi do what any group of unemployed old farts do on a weekday. They follow the call of adventure. Their search for answers reunites them with new faces and old, and the trio find out that the underworld is going through a massive reform period. Every Yakuza left adrift after the events of the last adventure is going to be rehabilitated back into normal society. But this is a process that's going to take a lot of influence and manpower. Ichiban, of course, having become an influential figure in the underworld, is willing to help. But during this turbulent reform period, he finds out that his biological mother, Akane, is still alive in Hawaii. Now tasked to reunite with her, he ships out. Despite this trip being a welcome distraction from everything going on, Ichiban gets himself into hot water the second he lands. His Uvu Javer attempts to rob him, he gets attacked by local criminals, he's drugged and left ass naked on the beach, and then is framed by crooked cops afterwards. What I'm saying is, Ichiban lived the authentic American experience in just a few short days. He is then saved by legendary Yakuza turned secret agent Kazuma Kiryu, who is in Hawaii in search of Akane, revealed to be missing. Now that Kiryu has made his entrance, I'd like to give this guy his flowers. The bond between Kiryu and Ichiban is my favorite part of this game. This bond is the game's beating heart, and it was the very first thing teased in the reveal trailer. Kiryu's inclusion in this game creates a fun relationship between the player and the cast. Ichiban, and by extension his friends, all know Kiryu's legacy, but not the man behind it. And if you've played the series up until this point, you know Kiryu pretty well. Beyond the myth is a guy who fights like hell to protect his loved ones, and despite his shortcomings as a leader and a father, he's got a heart of gold. He's also just old. He's an old ass man. Part of the fun in the story is the party discovering that Kiryu's just an old head, ordinary ass dude, and standing on equal footing with him. You know, in his prime, he just punched a tiger or two. Kiryu also learns a thing or two from Ichiban's friends, and it was touching seeing him drop that lone wolf act and rely on other people. You can see right away that Ichiban respects and admires him, and that doesn't change as he gets to know him better. Kiryu reciprocates these feelings throughout his time with Ichiban and his party, and forms a tight bond with all of them. Part of why I popped off so hard was just seeing the two dragons in action together, and the game absolutely delivers. The game does focus a lot on Kiryu for reasons that'll be obvious as you go along, but the one thing I'm glad about is that the game doesn't frame Ichiban as his replacement. It's so hard to fill Kiryu's colossal, size 15 ass Kingdom Hearts ass shoes, and I think the writers know that. Ichiban earned his title as series protagonist in Like a Dragon, and continues to defend that in this one. Back to the story though. Kiryu Kiryu and Ichiban search for Akane, trying to unravel this mystery behind her disappearance, becoming abundantly clear that a lot of dangerous folks are looking for her. The two also end up recruiting new allies along the way. And man, I gotta say, the new additions to the cast are extremely strong. Even the villains, too. Shout out to Yamai, who I think is a strong contender for a new fan favorite. The new party members, Chitose and Tomizawa, felt right at home with the returning cast, and I had a blast getting to know them too. There are a ton of great and memorable moments with all of them, and by the end of the game, I would gladly take a bullet for each of them. Chitose was someone I was interested in from the jump because she was voiced by Anju Inami, who did voice work in Love Live. So as an Idol fan, that meant that all my streams were finally crossing. I did end up playing the English dub anyway, but it was still exciting to hear the voice of Chika Takami in a Yakuza game. Chitose ended up being my favorite once I got to know her better, and by the end of it, that solidified super strongly. I also think the narrative goes places, and I especially love what it has to say about the topics it covers. Things such as tourism in Hawaii and how destructive it can be, the cost of living in America and how much that sucks, the vanity of wealth and consumerism, and especially atonement. It was very compelling seeing all of these characters fight like hell to escape the circumstances that placed them here, especially given the fact that these guys are all so down on their luck. The tagline for this game and the marketing is a story about the unluckiest but happiest people in the world, and that kind of struck a chord with me. Seeing these people struggle so hard to try and come out on top despite their circumstances. And I think that really went a long way in kind of gripping that emotion and grabbing it out of me by the end of it, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. I do have some gripes with the story though. I do think some characters are criminally underutilized and some end up feeling very half-baked. Some threads kind of get forgotten about and then get tied up at the end of the game very lazily. The plot meanders a little bit close to the end. Even though the story alone was like roughly half my playtime, I still feel like it needed a couple more chapters to develop its supporting cast. But despite how I felt about the story at some points, I'm not going to sit here and say it's not worth experiencing. The whole thing was such a blast from start to finish that I was satisfied in the end. And like I said before, I'd just been overcome with this intense feeling of wanting to live even though things are so hard. More on that later. I'm going to get a little embarrassing at the end here. Let's see what happens instead when we walk into the shadier parts of town. Now this is the real meat and potatoes of Infinite Wealth. I love RPGs, dude. So I was really excited to see how the combat was handled in Yakuza Like a Dragon. There was still room for improvement though. Once Infinite Wealth was announced, I knew the team was going to improve on that foundation, so I was very excited to see how it was going to be handled this time around, and I think they did deliver. For context, the Like a Dragon series was mostly beat-em-ups with RPG elements like random encounters and skill trees, and this would be the case up until Yakuza Like a Dragon, where the series fully leaned into what it borrowed from. Ichiban loves Dragon Quest and sees the world through the lens of an RPG, so once we changed protagonist perspectives, the framing of the world changed in turn. In the overworld, people will randomly approach you to fight if they thought you looked at them funny. When this happens, the goons that approach you morph into these like over-the-top versions of themselves. In fact, Ichiban doesn't start to see his enemies this way until after he becomes a hero again. So this means that you do regain your whimsy once you're fired from your job. In these fights, everyone takes turns whacking each other until one side wins. The player can use normal attacks, items, and skills to their advantage. Sometimes you might be outnumbered or facing down some mean-looking dudes, so the key to victory is to use all these tools in your kit. This includes things like buffing and debuffing, healing, and targeting enemy weaknesses. The biggest difference this time around is you can now freely move your character within this movement ring below them. Last time, you weren't able to freely position yourself, meaning that you can miss out on extra damage from picking up a bike and hitting an enemy with it. Keeping a close eye on your position in battle is very much rewarded. You can get extra damage by hitting your enemy from behind or even up close. You can use throwable items, tag teams with friends, and knock enemies into each other. Also, I think playing as Kiryu in a JRPG is downright bananas, and I love the way that RGG Studios translated his moveset into turn-based combat. Again, with some exceptions, Kiryu was only playable in freeform action style. He can even switch between his iconic stances, and all of them come with strategic benefits like extra actions or crowd control. The job or character class system was one of my favorite features from the last game, so I was very excited to see that there was a slew of new Hawaiian inspire jobs for the characters to learn. You ever just swim with a dolphin and get inspired to be a surfer bro? How about catching some coconuts and decide you want to be an action star? How about watching kids fight on the train and suddenly decide to study the blade? It's all possible here in Hawaii thanks to Alo Happy Tours. Much like in real life, you can use the skills you learned from one job in another one. This system really encourages you to go buck wild with your character builds and lets you kind of build them to suit your personal needs. The job system was rebalanced too, so some jobs are not as strong as the others given the accommodations to the new combat system, but the big benefit is that every job now feels overall stronger. But I think the biggest compliment I want to give this game is that getting into a battle is always a fun and exciting portion of your time with it. It's never boring, and it manages to keep you engaged. To mitigate damage, you have to perfect guard at the right time. To get extra damage out of the skills, you have to press the button at the right time, and some enemies need to be guard broken or else you're just going to be slamming your head against them. Battles feel like a parody of JRPGs and also a big send up to them. You don't fight slimes or monsters on the overworld, you fight guys in sleeping bags, you fight drunks, you fight evil clowns, you fight Roombas. You don't heal an ally, you spill the tea or do a beachside barbecue. It's all a lot of fun. Each skill animation is so goofy and it's guaranteed to at least get you to laugh, and it's especially true for these Kiwami and tag team moves too. You can even call in your homies to the battlefield. This system is called Pound Mates, and you basically call them up to help you turn the tide of battle too. It's also spin on the summon system from older JRPGs. And the cool thing is that combat continues to build on itself as the game goes on, so it never really stops surprising you. And I think the game goes a long way in elevating itself further by giving you some awesome dungeons and set pieces, boss fights, and some insane music. Some enemy factions have their own battle themes, and there are just so many bangers I found myself listening to when I was not playing the game. Hours flew by as I played this game and laughed like an idiot at every battle, and I think the combat went a long way in making it memorable for me. I wanted to see every single thing it had to offer, so I found myself changing jobs frequently, building every character, learning every skill just to see all of the different animations, and I think that was part of that joy of discovery for me. But speaking of time disappearing into thin air, Infinite Wealth gives you an absolutely massive sandbox to play around with, and it marries leisurely virtual tourism with the charm that the Like a Dragon series locales are known for. Hawaii is a brand new map for the series, and it marks the first time that it's gone stateside. As is the norm, the map is densely packed with shops, restaurants, treasures, and other fun stuff. You're encouraged to kick back and enjoy your time here, because all the time you spend off the beaten path is always rewarded. The game likes to tap into the player's natural curiosity by populating every nook and cranny with things to see. If something catches your eye, interacting with it will reward you with either a laugh or something weird. And I'm talking really weird. Whenever you get a new party member, you might notice these pink icons decorating the map. This is a very cool feature called the Bond Bingo. It's a system that kind of triple dips into sightseeing, building the bond gauge with party members, and learning more about specific characters. In the last game, your party would shoot the shit on a topic or comment on something that they saw while you're walking the overworld, and this was the party chat mechanic. This fills you in on character details that you might not learn or ever get to see in the main story. And while that feature is back here, Bond Bingo takes it a step further, because this time around, it focuses on a specific character as opposed to the party as a whole. When you travel to the Bond icon on the map, Ichiban and the corresponding character will talk about what they're seeing, and also you get to see that excellent chemistry that they have. This conversation then fills a spot on the bingo board, and it gives you some extra points for doing it. When that bond meets a specific threshold, your partner unlocks a drink link. These are basically their own side stories where Ichiban has the opportunity to get to know his drinking partner, and these drink links come with their own perks and bonuses, so you're encouraged to go absolutely nuts leveling up your social links. Be it through Bond Bingo or giving them gifts in the overworld or exploring. You can definitely spend a long while just getting to know party members by filling their Bond Bingo out, and I think this was a very clever way to weave in perks and exploration. I was always so excited to get a new party member because it meant that I was about to spend like an hour or more just kind of walking around the map and talking with this new character I just met. Even things like sitting down at a restaurant to restore health and magic had its own systems tied to it. Eating specific things granted the party combat buffs, unlocked conversations about the meal, and granted them bond bonuses. It is insane how cohesive and well thought out all these systems feel. On the topic of things being tied to exploration, the grinding, I think, was very cleverly handled this time too. You didn't have to go out of your way this time to level grind to get an upper hand in the combat and the boss fights in the dungeons. Around the map, there are these powerful enemies that kind of guard treasures or specific things, and you are encouraged to go hog wild finding them all and fighting them, and they drop a ton of experience, money, rare items, things behind treasure chests, and rewards the player for taking time out of their session to kind of walk around and find things, and also giving them experience as well. So this ties the level progression to the exploration, and it makes the experience that much smoother. I think the devs took the feedback from the last game involving some really nasty difficulty spikes and took that very, very seriously. That being said though, there are dungeons where players can level grind, complete with their own objectives and randomly generated floors too. There is a colossal amount of trophies tied to doing and seeing everything that the game has to offer in this open world section, so this is where a lot of my playtime was spent. There are trophies for playing mini games, befriending NPCs on the street, completing side stories and activities. So again, this is where I spent a majority of my play sessions. I spent 6 or 7 hours in some really, really long cases, filling out the map and taking in the sights, doing bond bingos, drink links, fighting these town keepers, because I really committed to this idea of just kicking back during my vacation. I knew I was going to be thorough like this, so I made sure not to start or play anything else alongside Infinite Wealth. So unfortunately, this meant that Persona 3 Reload flew out of the window. I was slacking in Genshin, Star Rail, all my other gacha games. Completely forgotten about. Infinite Wealth was the new hotness. All my free time went to playing this game, and it was the only thing I could think about when I wasn't playing it. When I got home from work or had a day off, I was planning on how I was going to spend my play sessions, and it's no exaggeration to say that the game became a very big part of my life for a few months. Booting up Infinite Wealth and playing it every day was like experiencing a little daily getaway. And it was such a blast looking back on it. On the topic of having a blast, the side content in this game is where the hours disappear. There is so much ground to cover for the side content in this game. As if Infinite Wealth wasn't huge enough, there is a cavernous amount of side content to dip your toes into. Playspots are series... Playspots are series... Playspots are series staples. Say that 3 times fast. And there's a ton of returning and new ones. The series got mega famous off karaoke, and it feels like RGG Studios tripled down on it. Many songs return for this one, especially the funny Dame Dane song and Dame Dane 2. The new karaoke tracks are all bangers, and my favorite one was Honolulu City Lights. It's this city pop banger with vocals again by Anju Inami and Suzy Young if you played the English one. All the tracks in the English dub version are dubbed in English too. As a rhythm game enjoyer, I found myself stepping up to the mic often just to do karaoke when I was not doing anything in the story. There are a lot of arcades across the map to play Sega classics and crane games too. Mahjong, shogi, casinos are here as always, and there's also a couple hidden spots on the map to get your game on if you know where to look. There are 3 new minigames in this one though. Sicko Snap, Crazy Delivery, and Mismatch. In Sicko Snap, you take a leisurely trip around town on a trolley and weirdos pop out along the route. Your job is to take pictures of them and help the police kind of capture their data, and I don't know, man. I stopped asking questions a long time ago. But if you liked Pokemon Snap as a kid, this is basically it verbatim, just very strange. Infinite Wealth loves stealing from Pokemon, and we'll see a lot more of that later. Crazy Delivery is a minigame inspired by, well, Crazy Taxi. You can earn cash in the early game by delivering food to hungry Hawaiians, but you have to bike fast and eat doing tricks, and keeping your momentum is the name of the game here, and you basically just gotta get as crazy as possible. And when I say that the animations and presentation in this minigame had me doubled over in tears, I mean it. I'm gonna pass out. I can't do it anymore, you guys. I can't do this anymore. Mismatch is a minigame that teaches Ichiban the art of sliding into the DMs. In this one, you put the bee in Bumble by making a bio to find a match, rizzing them up, trying not to fumble, and maybe scoring a date with somebody. At least, if they are who they say they are. You can play all of these minigames for a bunch of rewards, and a big one is seeing what kind of Looney Tunes ass hijinks Ichiban gets himself into. And when I say this man is living the life of a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, I mean that with no exaggeration. The sub-stories in this game are phenomenal. You don't have to do any sub-stories to finish the game, but as is the series norm, doing them rewards you with funny scenarios that you can look back and laugh on. This game has a ton of memorable sub-stories, and it's always a good time to help out a random stranger. What could possibly go wrong? And some of these are so goofy that I had to stop the game and like ask myself what the hell I was about to get myself into. If you've ever been on Twitter and saw an insane, like silly ass looking video titled, "What is the Yakuza series actually about?" there's a very high likelihood that it's from a sub-story like this one. These are best discovered and enjoyed organically, so I'll try not to show off anymore. I'll leave you guys to see that for yourselves if you decide to try this game out. Lastly, the playtime devouring abyss that is the Sujimon League is holy crap. I talked about this game ripping off Pokemon in passing, but it goes like beyond parody here. In the last game, Sujimon were the enemies that you fought and were logged into the Sujidex. I'm not making this up, by the way. Evolving this concept further, the Sujimon League asks Ichiban to recruit them via street battles or honest-to-God gacha, and then leveling them and raising your bonds. You then take these freaks to fight other Sujimon trainers in the wild or participate in raids. Once your Sujimon rank is high enough, you can fight Sujimon leaders in their gyms for their badges, and the goal is to catch them all. You can't make this up. The fact that this is an entire side story with its own mechanics, animations, NPCs, and so on is actual insanity. Now, this isn't new to the series. They always have these missable, like, entire side stories that take up, like, 6 or even 10 hours of your playtime, but every time it happens with something new, it never fails to surprise me. I was so pleasantly surprised with how much enjoyment I got out of the Sujimon League, and I spent so much time off the beaten path that an NPC called me and was like, "Dude, we need you to lock in and, like, get back here." So you can kind of get an idea for how much time I spent off the beaten path here, and it really capitalizes on your thirst for adventure, this gigantic, wonderful overworld you have to explore. Once the final chapter title card popped up and I was told to tie up loose ends shortly after, I felt this pit form in my stomach. I don't think I was really ready to say goodbye to Infinite Wealth just yet. Like I said way before at the start of the video, I get very attached to the media I consume. I get very emotional thinking about the experiences they gave me, and I can't help but feel like I don't want it to be over by the end of it. I felt the same way I usually do when a vacation's just about to wrap up. This was my life for a little bit, and I just really didn't want to say goodbye to it. But at this point, I had just hit the 75-hour count and had done almost everything there was to do, but there was still a little bit left. With that platinum trophy in my sights and determined to squeeze out all the content I could, I rolled my sleeves up and set out to finish the job. I did the drink links I didn't finish, the bond bingos that piled up, the finale of the Sujimon League, the last of the sub-stories I didn't do, and finish the trophy cleanup, for the most part at least. I have a bone to pick with a very specific trophy in the base game, which is the legendary dragon trophy. For this one, you have to hit level 70 to get the trophy to pop, which sounds very easy on paper, but the issue is that there is no reliable, time-efficient way to get it in the base game. The last enemy, I think, in this game is level 56, so you can farm in the challenge dungeons as much as you'd like to get this trophy, but it's going to take hours, and I mean hours of your life. You can get these level booster cans from these minigames that I mentioned earlier before to get closer to 70, but there are a finite amount of these in the game without having to fork over some money. You get 5 level can boosters for pre-ordering the game, and you also get more on the PlayStation or Xbox store if you decide to fork over the money. The Master Vacation DLC bundle also gives you a post-game with a side story, as well as a new challenge dungeon and a new game plus to carry your levels over though. The reason I keep saying base game is because of this DLC, and I think it kind of gives you the easier way out, which I understand because it's meant to be the time efficient way to do it. People are busy, they have stuff to do, but I didn't really like the principle principle of it. And let me be clear, I don't mind spending money on things like cosmetics in games, especially if I see myself playing it a whole bunch. I play gacha games and I spend responsibly, like within my means, of course. And I did also get 2 copies of this game for fairly cheap because it was so close to my birthday and Christmas that I just got a bunch of birthday money and gift cards and all that stuff. So I felt like I had already gotten my money's worth, so I ended up buying the costume DLC, for example, but Master Vacation Bundle just felt a little grimy to me. In the context of a Like a Dragon game, it feels very weird to include a trophy that's kind of locked behind this paywall. I felt like it was artificially increasing the game's playtime as opposed to organically extending it the way that the game had already naturally done itself. And Infinite Wealth did get itself into trouble for this before the game came out. I remember it was a very big thing. And I think the general sentiment is that locking New Game Plus behind a paywall is not fair because this is a feature that came into the package previously, at least for most of the games. But on the bright side, this trophy is not a requirement to finish the game. This just makes completion goals like mine a bit of a nightmare. Maybe someday I will go back and play the Master Vacation DLC bundle if it's discounted deeply enough. Eventually I did get the Legendary Dragon trophy using the level boosters from the minigames that I played and also from pre-ordering the game. And it did end up extending my playtime a bit longer, which is what I wanted. I was just too stubborn to accept any more handouts and just dug in my heels. But to the people who have played this game, you might have noticed that I left out a little something. If the Sujimon League was its own separate abyss, the Dondoko Island side story is a yawning chasm of content. I put this off for as long as possible, and I could not tell you why. It's not that I didn't want to do Dondoko Island, I just figured I would get to it eventually, and it ended up being the last possible thing I had to do. So very early on in the game, you're introduced to this side story called Dondoko Island. You are kidnapped and put onto this island by these the Gachapin and Muku that I only really recognize from Grand Blue Fantasy, I'm sorry. And they tell you that you have to fix up this island and turn this dump into a 5-star resort. And there are a lot of other like cool and cute, colorful NPCs on there that you kind of befriend and get to know better. And again, the goal is to turn it into a 5-star island. And to do that, you need to build structures, you need to collect items, you need to clean up trash, and invite guests to increase the island's popularity. If this sounds like Yakuza flavored Animal Crossing, it is. As you progress, you slowly open up every section of the island, and I feel like it was very fun to see everything come together, and satisfying to see what I built by the end of it. You also fight like honest-to-God pirates in this minigame who like don't want you to build this island up because they want to turn it into their dumping ground, which is like, all right. I stopped asking questions a long time ago. But in the end, I was so pleasantly surprised by Dondoko Island. This was the last thing I had left to do, like I said, so my playtime sessions with Infinite Wealth ended as chill and leisurely as they started. The hours melted away as I lived my idyllic life on my island, day in, day out. And the gameplay loop felt very addicting too. I found myself saying, okay, but I'm just going to do this before I go back to bed. And then I look back at the clock and like 2 more hours have passed. And by the end of it, it took me like 10 hours just to finish this side story. It's got a depth equal to the Sujimon League, and I was, again, so surprised at how both of those 2 side stories took up like a big chunk of my total playtime. Once I finished Dondoko Island though, I felt like it was appropriate to finally say goodbye.
This one's for you guys.
Honolulu City Lights. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Da, da, da.
By the time the credits rolled, my final hour count in Infinite Wealth was just about at that 100-hour mark, which truthfully is very normal for role-playing games like these. When I hear a game is going to be long like this, I start to sweat a little bit, especially because I don't have the time I used to, as I did in high school, for example, where I got to play these long JRPGs over a very short period of time. But the reason why my play count surprised me is because it went by in the blink of an eye. Infinite Wealth wrapped its tendrils around me and didn't let me go until it was over. And again, as someone who gets a little too emotional about this sort of thing, I felt like nothing could really come close to giving me the experience that Infinite Wealth did. And believe it or not, I actually left so much on the table here. What I meant by this is that I didn't cover everything there was to see in this video. People who have played Infinite Wealth and finished it are well aware of this kind of shoe drop I'm teasing here, but I wanted to leave some surprises left to see, and I hope that this video at least persuaded you into checking out the Like a Dragon series. It is a monument to RGG Studios game design, and it pays off to see it come this far. Infinite Wealth is all about the joy of discovery and rewarding you for investing your time into it. So naturally, I don't want to rob people of the same kind of experience that I had. Now that I've shown you the carrot on the stick, I invite you, dear viewer, to embark on this journey with me and see how you feel about Infinite Wealth by the end of it. By the time I finished the game and had finished everything in the post-game and the Platinum Trophy finally popped, I was just so overcome with emotion. The finale made me laugh, it made me cry so hard that my head hurt, I popped off so hard, and I had to go to work after this. I got in my car and I looked up at the sky. It was this very beautiful shade of blue, and I was thinking about that one tweet that Ichiban's VA said about, like, by the time you finish this game, you'll look up at the sky and think about how grateful you are for being alive or being happy that you're alive, and I had kind of felt that way. I was reflecting about the game on my way to work and thinking about the messages and the experiences it gave me, because much like when I finished Like a Dragon, I had already felt my brain chemistry being rewired, so I just kind of want to talk from the heart a little bit about everything I felt about Infinite Wealth when I finished it. If given the opportunity to wipe my memory and play this game again, I absolutely would. I felt like it came to me at a good time. Whenever I am down on my luck or experiencing hardship, I think it's so easy to focus on the bad and how much I'm struggling and just kind of get stuck in that place where I feel like there's nothing I can do. But there is something so compelling about seeing these fictional characters kind of undergo these real struggles and struggle and suffer and feel like their lives are basically over because of things that happened to them that were out of their control. And again, it felt so compelling to see these same characters struggle to break free and eventually overcome what's holding them back and, you know, find this comfort and joy in each other, being so down on their luck as a unit, so to speak, and extending those warm hands and supporting and loving each other and feeling like despite their struggle, they are wealthy, they are happy, they are loved, and they come together because of it. And in real life, again, it's so easy to forget that you have these amazing support system, these warm hands, these people that love you, who are willing to help you. And oh god, I'm getting a little teary-eyed thinking about this, but I think Infinite Wealth reminded me to love people, to take care of myself, to give people second chances, to try. As long as I am here and I am alive and I am healthy, I can take advantage of all of these things that were given to me. And I think it's very powerful for a piece of media to make me feel this way. And I think genuinely, as long as I'm here, I have Infinite Wealth. And that's gonna do it for this massive Infinite Wealth video. If you've made it to the end, thank you so much. I am incapable of stopping yapping. I talk so much. I'm so sorry. I want to just take a second to thank everyone who has subscribed to the channel in these past couple months. I've been seeing a lot of growth and I'm very grateful for everything despite that. I know I have a habit of releasing a video, then going out for milk and cigarettes and coming back like 3 to 6 months later with a new one. There's a lot going on in my life, nothing super bad. This is just something I do in my free time, so I'm really happy that people decide to come back and show me a lot of love for this video. So thank you for 4,000. Holy crap. I never in my life thought I'd even hit 1,000. So again, thank you guys. This piece was very personal to me, and I wanted to share my love for Infinite Wealth and my love for the Yakuza series and how much I just enjoy these experiences. So if you liked this video, feel free to let me know how you felt about it. if it was whack, if it was cool, if you had a similar experience with Infinite Wealth that you want to share with me. I'm reading all the comments, even though I'm not replying to all of them. So yeah, let me know how you felt about the video, and if you think I earned it, feel free to interact by liking and subbing and just letting me know in the comments. We do have some special credits, again, as always, for the artists who helped make this video possible. We have Firestia for the thumbnail composition. Amazing work as always. We appreciate that. We have her socials on the screen right now, and she is a very helpful person, and I love her work, so if you want to give her a follow, please feel free to do that. Special thanks to Polus, as always, for knocking it out of the park for the Himawari channel mascot as Ichiban kind of inspired fit. Also a Kei-san inspired kind of outfit from her appearance in this game with an Ichiban flair. As always, amazing work from her. I just love the color and the rendering that she does for all of her pieces, and she always does an amazing job with these, so please give her some love on her socials whenever you get the chance. I beg you, hands and knees beg you to do that. And that's going to do it for today's video. Like I said, please feel free to let me know how you felt about it in the comments below. But as always, take care of yourselves, stay gold, and I'll see you next time.